men's truck, and hopefully all our technical problems are over and we have a clear picture, because this is the race. And you can see Bourdin. Can you see him back there at all? We just talked about that. Let's go at the top of the Heartbreak Hill now, where Don Shane is standing by live. Don?
Okay, Bobby, thank you very much. I'm with Lisa Weidenbach, of course, and you've been talking about those Fab Four runners, the final guys that are heading to the top here of Heartbreak Hill. And Lisa, they'll be coming our way here in just a moment. As you were watching them, some impressions that you have just looking at those four runners.
I think Ikanga all the way. He's looking around saying, I'm in control. He's looking at the other guys. He's probably trying to hear how they're breathing, and I think he's the man to beat today.
You also think that he's the man to beat because maybe something special with what happened to him last year.
Right, I think he's trying to pick up where he left off last year. He came in heavily favored, and he's probably saying, I want it.
This is, of course, the most talked about aspect and part of this race. Many people think, and maybe it's a fallacy, that when they get here, the hardest part is behind them. Wrong. You don't necessarily think that's so. I
don't agree with that. It may look like it's downhill on paper, but you still have to put one foot in front of the other. No matter how downhill it is, it hurts.
Okay, why don't we turn around and you take a look at those runners and give me some thoughts as they run right by us here.
I think everyone's looking good right now, and they're just heading for home. They smell it.
They have passed us at the crest here at Heartbreak Hill, Bobby, and heading down a little hill before going up and passing the Boston College campus. And there they are, the four runners right now headed home in the last 5 or 6 miles here in the Boston Marathon.
I think they're looking well. I think Ikanga still is the one to beat. He looks in control and real smooth. I'm amazed.
Is there a surprise? Is there a surprise, as far as you're concerned, of any of the four that are here?
John Treacy is definitely a surprise. So much for resting the last week. He's probably done more mileage this week than he has all year, so I might go home with that thought in mind.
All right, Bobby, from Heartbreak Hill, let's throw it back to you in the studio.
Yeah. All right, the Fab Four has now dropped to the terrific three, as Mustafa apparently has fallen back about 10 or 15 yards behind Hussein, Ikanga, and Treacy, who is in the middle, and we'll continue our coverage of the 92nd Boston Marathon right after this. The Tanzanian and the Kenyan side by side. Ikanga and Hussein with John Treacy steps behind. That's the picture coming down the Heartbreak Hill. Let's go down to Tim Kilduff, who is on the men's truck just yards ahead of these two leaders. Tim?
Bob, we just passed Boston College, and you're right. Ikanga and Hussein are in the front. Treacy now is about 30 yards back. Mustafa now is close to 60 yards off the pace. And I keep mentioning Bourdin because he continues to hang in there. It won't be long before he catches Mustafa and will move into 4th place. Something to keep your eye on. Treacy continues to drop off about 15 yards now.
All right, Tim, thank you very much. There we see Ikanga with the very slim lead. Hussein, Treacy, and Bourdin. Your pick, Rob, is still back there.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's going to be very tough for him to really get up there. These two Africans, Junior Ikanga, is running very strongly, and I think they're going to keep the pace going. By having somebody on your shoulder, you really make it very difficult for anybody to come through. And you know, as we saw in the Rome Championships, when Bourdin was mowing everybody down, he got up to 3rd place. He wasn't able to catch the winner.
And that's the difficulty with that sort of strategy, is if something like this happens in the race where you have Hussein and Ikanga pushing each other along, they're going to continue to stay ahead. So you really have to, he has to be going faster than they're going right now to catch them, and Ikanga is going just about as fast as he can. Yeah. We're going to see the next mile split. This is a very significant mile split. If it's under 4:50, then I think Bourdin has a lot of trouble to catch up.
Yeah, I agree with that, Frank, because it is a very competitive stage now. And I'm sure Ikanga wants to run fast because he was very disappointing here last year.
The other thing is, he never really blows up. He's had 1 or 2 bad races, but my experience in watching Ikanga is he never blows up in the end. He always hangs in there.
Yeah,
He's hung in there against Seiko. He's hung in there against you in the Commonwealth Games. Even if he loses, it's not by very much.
No, he normally takes one of the minor places or finishes in the top 5. Last year he came here and, you know, sort of was one of the co-favourites going into the race and really wanted to run well here. But unfortunately he had a few problems
And Treacy's coming back, it seems. It seems that Conga may have slowed down a little bit, or Treacy's feeling a little better after the hill, because he's starting to gain.
He seems to have stopped his slide a little bit. Bourdin is very much out of the picture, at least video-wise, but not far back as we watch these two Africans duel it here under the gray skies of Boston. The 22-mile time, 1:47.39. If we can extrapolate what that was as John Treacy moves into the solo shot.
4:49, 4:48 for that mile down the slight hill. So they picked it up. Do you remember what you were for that mile down the hill, Rob, when you ran?
No, I don't. I wasn't really taking much notice.
Well, not only are the runners racing for berths, of course, on their country's Olympic teams, but once again, they are running here for big bucks.
But it's significant that Treacy did not fall.
The total prize package has been increased $35,000 for a grand total of $383,500. First place for the men's and women's winner will be $45,000 plus a Mercedes. Second prize, $22,000. Third, $15,000. Fourth, $12,000. And $10,000 for fifth place. Prize money has also been increased in the wheelchair division, with first and second place finishers receiving cash awards. In the Masters division, runners 40 to 49 years of age, the top prize is $7,000. Second and third place finishers also receive money. And yes, there's bonus money too. If a course record is broken, Rob DiCostella in the men's and Joan Benoit's in the women's, the runners will collect another $25,000. Also, if a world record is broken, Densimo, who just set one yesterday in Rotterdam in the men's, or Ingrid Christensen in the women's, a runner can earn an additional $50,000 in bonus money. Also, an additional prize money is available for world record in the wheelchair division, with the top 3 wheelchair finishes. Bedid, the 2 Frenchmen, and Linkvist. That's it. That's our 3 wheelchair finishers for 1988. Now we're back to Hussein, who has vaulted out to a slight lead and seems to be picking up the pace on Conga.
I think these two men are very fit and ready to run, but what's also surprising is John Treacy. He had to run a 4:47, 4:48 mile to stay in there. He's trying to catch up because in this kind of race, you can't lose contact. He knows he has to go back now.
We can see the other runners that aren't really that far, although sometimes the camera gives you a bad perspective on things, doesn't it?
And let's go now to Don Shane at Heartbreak Hill with Lisa Larson-Weidenbach for Rosa Moda's appearance there.
Bourdin's moved into 4.
Don, can you hear me?
The lead women are coming here at Heartbreak Hill right now, Bobby, and you see Rosa Moda in the picture right there. And Lisa, the very best marathoner in the world right now, proving once again that no problem for her here in Boston.
Definitely. She is one of the best in the world right now, and unfortunately there's no one there to push her. If there were, I think we'd see a much faster race. So Rosa's just running within herself and probably having a great time out there.
She looks so smooth and so relaxed, like it's just out for a Sunday stroll.
Yeah, that's right. I wish it were so easy for the rest of us.
Your thoughts on, as you see the monitor and the mile marks there and her time right now?
She's a little off the course record, but then again, you have to realize the record was set by Joan Benoit Samuelson, and at the time it was a world record. So to be that far off, it means nothing at this point because she's still on a very, very fast pace.
Does it hurt her, you two think, that nobody is there with her, pushing her as the men's race is going?
I don't think it's hurting her, but I think she would really enjoy having some company. I think she's a very assertive runner, and one of these days when she has company, she's going to run a lot faster.
So Rosa Moda is going through Boston once again in a good pace, and a pace that should have her winning the marathon and defending successfully again this year. What do you think is the problem as far as being such a discrepancy from the lead women, the #1 woman marathoner in the world, and I dare say even people like yourself that don't seem to be able to catch her?
Well, I think right now the women's field aren't as dense as the men's field. There aren't as many women competing, and there are so many other marathons to choose from. Also, the American women were running Pittsburgh in 2 weeks, and so Rose is basically out on her own right now because the other women are elsewhere, and there just aren't as many women to keep up with her.
All right, Lisa, thank you. Let's go back to Bob Lobel in the studio. Bobby?
Okay, we're going right out to the men's truck. There's Ibrahim Hussein, and next to him is Yuma Akanga. Behind him will be John Treacy, and Treacy's hanging in there. Bourdin has moved up to 4th place ahead of Mustafa, but Treacy is really showing some mettle here when he was pushed back and now is staying within striking distance, although he looks very uncomfortable out there.
But he always looks uncomfortable.
Contingent of Tanzanian runners into Boston, and he is now battling Ibrahim Hussein, the 29-year-old Kenyan. Hussein proved in '87 he was one of the more durable and fastest of the world's marathoners. 6 weeks after winning New York City in 2:11:01, Hussein won the Honolulu Marathon for the 2nd straight year. He has also posted 6 top 10 placings on the roads at shorter distances. It is Hussein versus Ikanga for all the marbles here in Boston. Tony Revis?
Just coming into Kenmore Square right now, so they've got a little less than 2 miles left in their running, and it's the same old thing. Ikanga leads for a while, then Hussein leads for a while. I don't know why Hussein really is doing any of the work himself, other than he might be an honorable guy, or just Ikanga's resting a little bit as we go back and find where John Treacy is, that gnarled, bristly veteran of so many world championships at cross country and the silver medalist at the Olympic Games, but you can see his stride falling apart more. Moda on the left side, and Gail, she's been leading the women, but there's a fight going on behind her as well.
There is. At 21 miles, Rosa was 1:55.58, and behind her, 2.5 minutes behind, is Hosima from Finland. As we said before, Priscilla Welch is 1.5 minutes behind Hosima, and Lizanne Buzios from Canada is 24 seconds behind Welch. So that's the way it unfolds for the women. And I might add that Candace Cable-Brooks has just won her 4th Boston Marathon in 1:55.22.
Well, add 15 minutes to that.
We join with our team of Frank Shorter, Rob DiCostello, and Catherine Switzer. It is Ikanga, who is wearing number 5 in the Tanzanian singlet, and Hussein, the New York Marathon, number 23 in the blue singlet of his native Kenya. Ikanga has already qualified for his country's Olympic team. He is running for the gold here in Boston. Hussein is a step right behind him. And Tim Kilduff, who is reporting from the men's truck, is standing by. Tim?
Bob, I really wish I could switch seats with you now. I wish you were out here because these two are going head-to-head. I try to subjectively look at these guys. Hussein is running exactly the way he did from the start of the race. Ikanga is now beginning to labor just a little bit. His breathing pattern is starting to change. Treacy now is about 30 yards off the pace. But these two guys are going to go at it, and they're going at it right now.
Closest finish in the history of the Boston Marathon is basically happened twice. Bill Rogers took Jeff Wells in 1978 by 2 seconds, and then Alberto Salazar knocked off Dick Beardsley by 2 seconds in another wire-to-wire finish. And this one is shaping up to a spectacular one as well, with about 7 or 8 minutes left in this personal duel. It appears that John Treacy, although he has had a game race, is not in the class with these two right now, and Bourdin is well back. Rod, we've narrowed it down to these two. What do you think?
This is just fascinating, just watching the tactics that are unfolding on the screen here. You can see Hussein and Akanga putting in surges, each one trying to break the other's willpower. Both of these runners are very, very tired. You can see by their arm carriage. They've both had very draining preparations for this race, running lots of marathons. So I'm a little surprised that they've broken away and broken up the field as they have. And here we are. See Akanga putting in a surge now. Any moment now we'll see Hussein move back up onto his shoulder and maybe even put in his own surge. It's a really fascinating stage of the race because, like I said, they're both very, very tired, and it's just a matter of willpower now.
Where would you like to be right now of these two? On the lead?
I'm happy sitting here watching it.
If you were Hussein, are you comfortable just a shoulder back of him?
Well, what you're doing is you just do everything that you possibly can. You just worry about, the next 50 yards. You try to put in a surge and you just try to break his willpower. And if he stays with you, then, you just approach the next 50 yards and you take it like that. I think they're still on around about 2:08 pace, so it's still a very fast time. And you know, whoever wins this, it's going to be going to go down in history. I think it's a great two-runner duel.
It's 50 seconds off of your course record. Are you? Does this lend itself to a faster pace? These guys head-to-head, or is there more strategy here?
I think there's much more strategy. I think if they were alone, they could really afford to just, you know, let it all go. And you know, if they got a little bit tired over the last 50 yards, or they had cramps like we saw Jeff Smith have when he won it, it wouldn't really matter because they'd be well clear and they'd still win comfortably.
This is going to be an unbelievable finish as they come through Kenmore Square. Remember the other two, Rogers and Wells, and Salazar and Beardsley. They were 2 seconds apart. That was the closest two finishes in the history of the Boston Marathon. But now it's Akanga and Hussein.
And Ikanga is really trying to pull away. Hussein is just trying to stay as close as he can. I think that's why he looked around. He said, is there anybody behind? I want to wait and sprint. In the past, Ikanga has lost major marathons in the sprint. I don't think he's the fastest of these two. I think Hussein's a little faster. Ikanga is going to have to get away from him, I think.
Where do you stick the needle in here if you're Hussein? If you got this guy on the ropes, where do you go for the throat in this race?
Well, Hussein's coming off a win in Honolulu and also in New York, so he knows what winning is all about. Akanga finished second in the Tokyo Marathon just recently, so I mean he knows what coming second is all about, and he doesn't want to go through that again.
What do you think, Catherine? Which one do you like right here?
Well, I think I'm going to have to go with Hussein because I happen to believe
to me that's the consensus right now.
That Ikanga really had to pay a price for that too. It's still a 2:08 race, even though it was second place in Tokyo, and that takes it out of you. Especially, as Frank said, in the closing moments, he's not going to have that last-minute leg spring.
Hussein is playing it very smart here. He's just far enough behind Ikanga to be pulled along, whereas Ikanga really is doing the work. It looks like they're running side by side, but they're not. Hussein is staying just a little bit behind, but he's also kind of playing around because I think he knows that Ikanga likes to be ahead, and he's just sort of splitting the difference and not being far enough behind to make Ikanga comfortable.
This is the race now. It is Ibrahim Hussein in the dark blue singlet of his native Kenya. Tanzania's Yuma Akanga in the white singlet is running on the left. It is head-to-head. They have been side by side for the entire race. They had a field of 12 that were with them. It then was narrowed down to 7. It then went down to 4. It dropped to 3. And now we have 2 left as we come up the final mile and a half.
I've raced against Akanga many times, and quite often it always comes down to this sort of a race that I've had with him. In the Commonwealth Games back in '82 in Brisbane, it was very much this way, with Juma putting in very, very decisive surges. He puts in a really aggressive surge, and then it seems to ease back, and he's not really trying to break you physically. He's trying to break you mentally, and he's trying to break your will.
He is trying right now. He has really upped his tempo and is trying to pull away, and Hussein just goes right back with him.
That's got to be devastating psychologically, doesn't it, Frank?
When you make a commitment like that, you have to stay ahead and lead. Actually, if Ikanga wanted to surprise Hussein, he'd drop back a little bit now, but it just isn't his style.
This is Hereford Street, and of course it's the final turn before the magic run. It's about 1.5 miles from here down to the finish line in front of the Boston Public Library.
It's about 1/2 mile. Only about 1/2 mile to go, according to the time. So now what's significant here is very soon they can go anaerobic. You can only go all out for about 3 minutes max. So very soon one of them is going to make a move.
And when I ran this race in '86, the problems I was having at this stage were in my legs. I was getting cramps from running up and down the hills.
And here it is. Akanga appears to be pulling out, at least on that turn, but Hussein is neck and neck. And now it's a run down to the finish line. Remember, the finish line has been moved not from the Prudential Center, but to the Boston Public Library, so it's a considerable distance down the road, although they can both see it at this point in the race.
I think Ikanga just cut him off, Hussein off on that corner, and I think Hussein had to shorten his stride. He lost a couple of beats, and I think that's the reason he's just a little bit off here.
This is a long finishing shoot too, and the last thing you want to do is commit yourself too early and have to pay the price by tying up and being run over the top of, because like Frank was saying, at this stage you don't have a lot of rope to play with.
Looks like Akanga now has made a move and is beginning to sprint toward the finish line. Hussein seems to have fallen back just a bit.
If he can open up a gap now, Hussein will start looking behind and making sure that he's got second, and as soon as he starts to do that, we'll know that Akanga has won the race.
Hussein is staying right in there.
Hussein moving off to Ikanga's right-hand side, trying to get by.
Is he drafting a bit?
I think he's just trying to stay as close as he can.
It's Yuma Akanga now with the lead. If he stays there, he'll be the new champion of the Boston Marathon. Akanga and Hussein.
And the crowd can hear them. We can hear them behind us now.
Here comes Hussein with a kick. It's Ibrahim Hussein who has taken over the lead of the Boston Marathon. And it's Ibrahim Hussein who has won New York and is about to win Boston. He made his move. He waited to the last second and is coming in to win.
Great performance. Very sensible, very intelligent, very tactically ideal race. He sat back there, let Akanga do the running over the early section down the finishing chute, made his move when he was confident that he could win it.
And here comes John Treacy, who has hung in there most of the race and will be coming in third.
Incredible performance given how much racing and traveling he's been doing. I don't think it was wise for him to enter this race, but now he has some confidence going into the Olympics. He knows he can hang in there.
He's a certain contender in the Olympics now. The Irish can't possibly leave him out of their Olympic team after this great performance.
Ibrahim Hussein, who has won Boston, has won New York, has won Honolulu 3 times.
Delando Bourdin coming in 4th place here. I think that's a great run from him, and he's just beaten Gianni Poli from Italy. So those 2 Italians, the Italian marathon scene is very important. There's a lot of competition between them. Hussein obviously very, very happy. Looking at his watch just to make sure that it was a good time.
Boston Mayor Ray Flynn, who did not run this year.
Hussein said this was the most important race for him this year, and his son is going to be 4 years old tomorrow, and he dedicated the race to him.
Oh, it's wonderful. With the Kenyan flag there.
And talk of the strategy as he holds up the Kenyan flag, the strategy that he overtook. He allowed Akanga to think Akanga had the race won, didn't he?
Yes, he just sat in there, obviously knew that it was a long finishing straight, sat in there until he knew that he could make his move. Akanga made his move earlier, being crowned with the laurel wreath there.
Bob, is there any greater moment in a marathoner's life than this?
It's great the way they get the athletes straight after you cross the finish line when you're still sweating and you're still buzzing with the excitement. Take you straight up onto the victory dais and put the wreath and the medallion around your neck before you've even realised what's happened. You know, you've crossed the finish line and wham, you're up there, and before you've really been able to soak up the excitement.
Listen, I've got to interrupt you, but this is Johnny Campbell finishing, and I guess 5th place, and he's my friend from New Zealand, and I got him into this race at the very last minute. And he's a guy who's 4-time national cross-country champion, 4 times marathon champion. He's constantly overlooked by his federation. He's trying like heck to get a 2:11:13, so they'll send him to the Olympic Games.
It's 2:11 now.
Well, he's going to go. I can't believe it. This is fantastic. He was in tears over this race. He's here. It took him like 40 hours to fly here from New Zealand. A wonderful performance for Johnny Campbell from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Frank Shorter now, this finish.
That's Steve Jones, I think, given the gait. He runs like Steve Jones, so I think that's 5th, 6th place. No, that's Pizzolato. You're right.
Pizzolato, yeah.
Talk about this strategy in this finish. This was, we get the final time. This could well be the closest finish in Boston Marathon history. Probably more than a second separated Hussein and Ikanga. He did appear to allow Ikanga to think that he had it won.
Well, Hussein is a very bright but soft-spoken. That's why he's been overlooked. And he's won major races, but in slower times. But he also has to have known that Ikanga, more than any marathon runner in history, has finished 2nd in close finishes in marathons.
Well, and that means he's
slow.
We saw that on Akanga's face when Hussein went past him. Akanga didn't have anything left. He didn't even try to lift himself because he had accepted that Hussein was going to go on and win.
You know, we were talking, here's Orlando Pizzolato finishing, and you know, he is, I think, the master at finishing fast second-half marathons, and he's done it repeatedly. He's one of the few that can run a negative split, faster second half than a first half. And once again, a stalwart performance from him.
Let's just go back to Hussein for a minute because of the race that he and Ikanga, it was a classic duel and one that'll go down in history of the Boston Marathon. But Ikanga chose to have that role of leading. Hussein really dictated the whole race, didn't he?
Well, Akanga was up there forcing the pace all of the way. Hussein was up there occasionally, especially in the early stages. He was running very aggressively and very strongly. In the latter stages, I was surprised because I thought that he was starting to look tired, and the reason that he was behind was because he was tired. But obviously, he really knew what he had left and sat in there and ran a very, very well-judged race. Coming in now, that's Steve Jones just on the left of the screen there. I'm not sure who the African is in front of Steve.
The second guy up is Steve Jones. Bill Rogers should be finishing shortly. He is, at last count, about 40 seconds behind the Masters leader, Richard Marjak. So Rogers is right behind.
Now, Rob, Frank, a question. I mean, here is Steve Jones finishing first in the British contingent. Do you think that means he's going to get selected for the Olympic team?
I think it's going to be a very, very difficult decision. He's going to run a time close to 2:14. The third English runner in the London Marathon ran 2:11, so it's going to be a very difficult decision for the British selectors to make.
2:08.42.
2:08.42 is the official winning time, and the second place time.
Official. You call official if you want. It's not. It's official. 2:08.42.
All right, let's go to the interview tent where Ibrahim Hussein is there.
At the end there. How did it go from the end? Tell us about that duel between the two of you.
I was working on the finish. You know, I knew I had a good kick than Ikanga, so I was just.
You felt strong?
Yeah, I felt real strong.
What was your strategy when you hooked up with Ikanga for so long? Did you try to wait until the last possible minute to make your move?
You know, the first part of the race, I was controlling the pace. And then when I saw Ikanga up there, I said, let him control the pace and I'll just hang with him. So my main aim was somebody to walk the second half of the race.
And another Kenyan.
Was there any part in the race where you thought you would not be able to pass him? You had him measured when you came down Boylston Street down the stretch. Was there any part where you said, I just cannot do it?
No, I was in control. I don't feel I can move with him. I just wanted to cover what he does.
You had them all the way, as we say, huh?
Thank you. I miss your son's 40th birthday. I don't think there's any better present than this. You know, everybody knows how much I wanted to win Boston, and I was ready for it. So you know, I think it's going to be a great birthday for my son.
Any low points in the race?
We could have ran another 20 miles, I think.
Another 20?
Yeah, I believe we could have done that.
Could you compare the atmosphere in this race in Boston with other marathons that you've run around the world?
I think it's a very fast course, except for the hills. I was worried about the hills. So I saved myself. I didn't want to burn myself and die at the hills. But I think it's a very fast course.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It's Ibrahim Hussein from the finish tent here at the Boston Marathon, and let's go to Bob Lobel.
All right, a well-deserved drink and the flag of his native Kenya draped around as we go back out to the other finishers. The top 5 men are coming off the race. Hussein is the champion. Ikanga, Treacy, Bourdin, and Poli, the 2 Italians. We'll be back with the women's finish as we continue our coverage of the 92nd running of the Boston Marathon.
Swiss Air can send you off.
Finishing second in his first Masters. That is in the Masters category at 2:18.16 is Rogers' time. 2:18.16. He didn't finish second in the race overall, but he finished second in the Masters race. Bill Rogers at the age of 40. And Rosa Moda about to close out as we come down Commonwealth Avenue with Ibrahim Hussein in. She's coming down Kenmore Square in Com Ave. Ibrahim Hussein is in with the win. Bill Rogers is second in the Masters, and Rosa Moda is well in control of her back-to-back Boston Marathon.
She sure is, and she's running a 2:24 pace. She's going to finish in under her time of last year, which was 2:25.21, and I think that she looks wonderful. She's picking it up from the earlier sluggish beginning, and I think what she did is took the first half easier and then started to kick and really moved it in.
Very sensible way to run this course because it is so demanding, and like we saw in the men's race, I think a lot of those men overran themselves in the early stages and paid a very heavy price for it over the hilly sections and the concluding stages of the race. Rosa very experienced runner. She's run just about everywhere in the world, won many major international, European, World Championships, going into the Olympics as a favourite probably for the gold medal, and she's run a very sensible, intelligent race.
Well, Rob, I think last August she showed the world that when she beat some of the world best by 7 minutes on a hot and humid day, that she is really in a class by herself. And I think that if there's a mystique about the magic 220 barrier and the gold medal, I think that Rosa is really the one who's going to get it because she's the most relaxed and most sensible about it.
Everybody always talks about the Eastern European dominance of women's events. In the World Championships in Rome, Rosa beat the Soviet girls by 7 minutes, which is an incredible performance from a small country like Portugal, a small, petite, wonderful lady like Rosa. It was great to see.
And what she's also showing is she can run in every type of condition, all conditions. She won in Rome in the World Championships when it was extremely hot and humid. Everyone suffered except she, and now on a really overcast, rather cold day, she can run well in these kind of conditions, so that makes her all the more unbeatable. She can run in any kind of condition.
She told me that she would rather have a windy, cold day if she's going for time and a hot and humid day if she's going to go for the competition, because she said that she fades a little in the heat but